everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Mastering Dungeons, your favorite tabletop role-playing game news, design, and stuff podcast. I am out of my mind. I'm Shawn Merwin here with my beloved co-host, Teos Abadia. I don't know who is beloveding you, but you are definitely beloved.
Well, I appreciate that greatly. We got some belovedness this week. If ever there was a week when we can take the Lorecast, I know you might be a little divided on this, but I hear that either this or the next week, some upcoming week, we can finally take them, become the number one in all the land, because they did a sort of surprise stream the other night. Ben was there and James was there, and they were they were like practicing because Dante is going to be away. So in their moment of weakness, not only did that happen, but Matt Colville, friend of the show, showed up on that stream and said, I think Mastering Dungeons is the best industry commentary online. And do you know what I said to Matt, Shawn?
What did you say?
I said, we're number 159 in Iceland.
This is true. This is known.
That was funny. So thank you, Matt Colville. That's super kind. Yeah. We'll try to not mess up this week.
We will. Well, we messed up last week, so I have to make a correction.
Yeah.
We were talking about different games and how Gloomhaven seemed to have fallen off the radar. And we were corrected justly and thankfully that although the crowdfunding ended in June of 2023 for the Gloomhaven RPG, it is still not out yet. Therefore, no one is playing it.
Yeah.
Which is
and it's not
very, very
Gen
true.
Con. Yeah.
It is not running at Gen Con when it has not been released.
Yep.
So, apologies for any disparaging remarks you took from the fact that this game was not being played. You could add the disparaging remarks in that it's 2 years out and there's still no playable version of it.
And people, and we didn't even know, right? Like it hasn't been that kind of buzz excitement. But hopefully, we wish all games well, and hopefully, when it does release, boom, massive new crowd coming in to play RPGs. That would be awesome.
Yeah, and it comes to the question of hype. How much hype plays into a game versus sales. And it's interesting that a lot of the games that are getting the most hype, to us at least, are coming from streamers, right? It's coming from Draw Steel. It's coming from Daggerheart
and Cosmere, yeah.
Well, Cosmere's not streamers, though. Cosmere is authors.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, I see what you mean.
Which is a different thing. And Gloomhaven is from board gamers.
Yeah.
And so it's an interesting look at where we get our hype from, where our attention is drawn to, versus maybe where other people's are. People who don't watch YouTubers and D&D, people that don't read Brandon Sanderson's books, but play board games and role-playing games. Is that the hype game that everyone's waiting for? We haven't heard it, but maybe it's out there.
Right.
Don't know.
Yeah, it could be. And I thought you were going to say the hype around kind of independent streamers who decide to talk about a game, because in board games, there is an ecosystem of people who talk about the latest game, and high profile people who get paid to look awesome talking about the latest board game and pump it up, sometimes paid to do so. Right. And that's a whole engine there. And it'd be interesting whether that engine ends up also covering the RPG, which maybe could create some crossover too. That'd be interesting.
Yeah. So, we keep an eye on all these things. We also kept an eye this weekend on Draw Steel. Teos and I played Draw Steel, and we're going to talk about that in our main segment today. But first, we're going to get to the questions and comments from our amazing listeners. A whole bunch of new questions came in. I don't know how many we're going to get to today, but we will start with Thomas Connolly, who came to us via our Patreon, asking, hey, that was a great show about D&D and its quote-unquote competitors. I really liked how you didn't dwell on the competition aspect. I have a related and more conflict-oriented question. Well, not so much a question, but a suggestion for a future show topic. What is your sense of the future of organized play? There are 4 points that I hope you'll touch on. Adventures League, from obviously Wizards of the Coast, Legends of Greyhawk, now out from Bald Man Games, Daggerheart. Will they have an organized play? Can they have an organized play? And Draw Steel with that same question: will they and can they have an organized play? Uh, I'm going to turn this question around, and I'm going to say, well, what is the goal of an organized play program? Is it just to provide content? Because a lot of people, when they buy a game, they want adventures, they want content to run for their players. So, is it just providing content? Is it organizing a community? Is it trying to build a community through this organized play structure? Is it just to provide different from a community? I would say is providing game masters and players, connecting them with each other. That's part of community, but it's not the whole community. And is it just like exposure for your game? Is it just to get it into the minds of players, especially if they already have it in their hands? If they bought it but they don't have a way to play it, is this to say, hey, remember, you can still play this game that you bought or purchased or kickstarted or whatever? So all of those questions go into the answer. And now I'm going to see if Teos wants to elaborate on any or all of that.
I have a million thoughts, but one of the things that along these lines that came to mind was thinking about Gen Con. You know, we talked about Gen Con play numbers.
Mhm.
And the difference between, say, how many people played Daggerheart and how many people played D&D. And the Daggerheart games, I'm sure there were some DMs who organized it individually. I didn't track that. But the Daggerheart games were organized by a company that is out there kind of trying to grow and say, hey, hire me. We will find DMs and run your game for you at various events, so you don't have to be there, right? So Matt Mercer is not organizing, believe it or not, the games being played there at the convention. And I think it's the same thing with like Shadow Dark. I think, you know, there's a company that sort of runs those, I think, an organization at least. So Daggerheart, this company runs those games. And this year, there were 2016 seats that were being run between all the different people who might have who run it. And again, I didn't track whether all of these were from that particular company or how many of them. But 2,000 for Daggerheart. And you look at D&D, and it's 17,000 seats, right, that were available, the number of tickets offered. And what's interesting is 5,300 of those are Bald Man games. And that really blew my mind, because you think of like the official organized play for it, and I assumed it was a very large portion of that, but it's, you know, under a third of them are being organized. The rest are just other groups, other DMs, because D&D has that much energy to it, right? But what the organized part of it does, the Bald Man Games part of it, is provide that continuing play, that evolving story arc, that community, the people you get to know year after year, show after show, as you start becoming part of that, which is really critical, right? So you might not get the like fun, wacky concept that someone does, but you get this really interesting evolving storyline, and you get to see things like the Ghostfire Gaming partnership that is, you know, an evolving storyline that's really exciting and fun. So there's a lot of complexity to what this organized play is like.
So let's take each one individually. Adventurers League, to be completely honest, I don't know what that means anymore. Because there is scads, loads, tons, metric tons, tons spelled TONNES of content since 2014 that is considered Adventurers League play.
You couldn't play it in a lifetime. I mean, it's just all the
you
third-party
play
stuff.
it
You know, no, the convention organizers.
And I wasn't even thinking of third-party stuff. And if you start throwing in that stuff,
and by that I just mean like there's the Dungeon Craft program, and before that the CCC programs. Like just you could never, if you started now, you will be dead before you finish playing all of the adventures there. Probably.
And so there's all that content. There's more content there than in all of these other things that are listed here combined throughout history. Right? There will never catch up. So think of, there's all that content out there, but there's no quote unquote future vision. There's no, oh, let's go here and play this particular thing. I don't know what's going on with Adventures League, or if it's even still a thing.
Yeah. I
So
mean, we
that
know that there
tells
are
you,
admins, right? Admins are doing
yes,
things. The rules are being updated, so the admins are doing their jobs. But
right,
the way it kind of evolved was, well, in the future, Wizards is not responsible for the content, the adventures,
right,
the supervision. There is some organization now around conventions and things like that for special events, and the rules get
mhm,
tweaked by the admins. But nobody is writing adventures because the people who originally, well, let me take that back. There are a few groups, right? The groups
right,
in Singapore,
mhm.
in Ireland, right, that are like
Scotland,
doing
yeah,
Scotland. Thank you. That
yeah,
are doing these cool
right,
areas of play. They are still doing their thing, but Baldman Games has stopped doing Moonshays and is
yeah,
now doing the Legends of Greyhawk. And the Gamehole group is now sort of split, and it sounds like they will do some, but they're also focused on their Eastern marches. So the amount
mhm,
of AL created has gone to a very, very small amount with a lot less community and emphasis. Now,
right,
there is interesting wording around Legends of Greyhawk that sort of suggests that Baldman Games have been given a portion of the very program they created. And in theory,
mhm,
these other groups could maybe get regions of Greyhawk if it switched to that. So I think Wizards maybe is just seeing how that goes.
right,
But there is no plan right now being enacted really around
mhm,
organized play, that a fan would call a plan.
right,
It's which is weird because initially there was a very major plan and there was great
yes,
energy behind things like the factions and seeing which faction, did the
mhm,
Zentarum win the first event and who won the second. There was a lot of energy behind this and the goals of community, of encouraging play, of empowering organizers. That was all
mhm,
enormous at the beginning of 5e.
yeah. And like any of these organized play programs, the more successful it gets, the harder it is to control.
Yeah.
And
And
because
run.
you have to rely on volunteers, and volunteers are wonderful until they're not, right? Until something happens either legally or just socially where it becomes a beast that is unable for the parent company to control. So then it needs to pull those things back. And as soon as you pull those things back, you are pulling out the posts that are holding up your structure one by one. And you risk all of that coming crashing down.
Yeah.
So the organized part of the organized play is the hard part.
Yeah.
So what does that mean for Daggerheart? What does that mean for Draw Steel? As Teos said, I don't know if either of those organizations can do an organized play campaign that would even come close to rivaling even Legends of Greyhawk
Mhm.
without help.
Yeah.
Because Bald Man Games, who is maybe running Legends of Greyhawk mostly, um, have the structure in place that they've built over many, many, many years. And they have the game masters and they have the connections and they have the convention pull in order to do this, to run thousands of people through games at a convention if necessary.
Yeah. Yeah, they have the structure within, and we'll talk about this a little later when we talk about some videos they've made recently. But Tony Winslow, Brittle, Savannah, Houston, McIntyre, when they start
Mhm,
organizing what Greyhawk is, they've done this multiple times, and so there is
mhm,
that experience of how to weave a story, how to organize it into arcs, how to empower and
mhm,
oversee writers. That's the kind of work that, like, if Critical Role and Darrington Press want to have a true organized play program, they somehow have to comprehend those things without messing it up, which is really hard to do. Old Man
mhm,
Games, Dave Christ was running things during the early 3E era in his region and becoming a triad member and then a circle member. And so that experience is, you can't even begin. It would take us an hour to just talk through the experience he has, right? And that
mhm,
all the people under him have. So what right now is happening is these companies are employing somebody to run demos. And there's a really neat blog out there that I saw on Bluesky and on Mastodon that was someone sharing how they ran tons and tons of Daggerheart demos and what they learned from it. at Gen Con.
Mhm.
But that's really different than an organized play program, or it can be, depending on your
Mhm.
goals. And so we'll see whether any of these companies truly decide to take that on, and how they go about it. Many companies try it and then find it's difficult. So, like Free League, I shared a while back that I realized, oh, they've got this organized play structure. And I joined it and I looked in the forums, and all of the official people had just stopped posting on the forums, and the forums had died. It
Mhm.
had all just sort of vanished.
Right.
And now it was individual groups that were just choosing to run freely games because the company
Mhm.
had just sort of vanished, as far as I can tell. If someone knows otherwise, please correct me. But that's how it looked like to me, suddenly visiting these dead forums and dead program, apparently.
And even the ones that succeeded and continue to succeed, like Pathfinder Society, really piggybacked on the organization that was around Living Greyhawk. So they just, as people didn't move from third to fourth edition, they found those people that didn't want to change their rules and said, hey, we're going to put out a game very much like third edition. We want you to continue to do what you're doing in your area. And so they were able to co-opt that organization and get a head start on their organized play, which they did a very good job of uh, maintaining over the years.
And
Um,
even a lot of their staff, right? SRM, Stephen Ratty McFarland, was the
right.
head of the RPGA organized play program at Wizards. He became a Pathfinder person, right? Eric Mona
Mhm.
was a big part of the 3E work, right? So all these
Mhm.
people, Jason Bullman was, a Circle
Mhm.
member. So all of these Pathfinder names were third edition
Yeah.
organized play people, and they brought
Mhm.
that right over.
Yeah. So the sense of the future is going to be how much are these groups willing to spend money, spend resources, or hire other people with the expertise to make these programs work. And they'll have to, do an ROI, right? What's the return on our investment? Even if we call it marketing budget, we still need to be able to decide if it's worth it in the long run to continue these things.
Yeah. And it can be fantastically, fantastically expensive. I
Mhm.
forget the exact amount. I was hoping I could just see it here in some notes. I know I have a figure somewhere, but there was a time in Polyhedron magazine that the
Mhm.
RPGA lead shared, "Hey, we requested," and I want to say it was something like they requested $2 million as their budget for the RPGA. Right, this is like
Mhm.
in the late '80s, early '90s, something like that, and they were only given half of it.
Mhm.
That's the levels of money one can spend. Even
Mhm.
back then, that's not even today's dollars, right?
Yeah.
To organize a program like this, because you are doing so much with whatever it is, mailings, organizational
Mhm.
stuff, staff. It's just it's a lot.
Yeah. And we could talk for a whole episode about this and probably have. Uh, but we need to get to some other questions, including this one from Megan J via email. Megan emailed us at masteringdnd@gmail.com. Hi, Shawn. This question is for Teos. Great.
Get out of the
I am
way,
ex-
Shawn. Finally unencumbered by the opinionated, nuanced views of Shawn. No, that only means your quality is going to decrease right now. But yeah, Megan J says, I'm excited to run the Wild West setting for Daggerheart called Colossus of the Drylands, one of the cool campaign frames. The Western genre is near and dear to me, but most of my experience is with fantasy and horror games. I know you've been running a Deadlands campaign with your group, so my question is this: what are the challenges of running a Western campaign for a group of 5e players, and how can I really lean into the genre to make this game feel like more than D&D but with guns? Um, so I think Megan J, and I've played at Megan J's virtual tables. You run a great game. I know it'll be awesome. And you're already asking the right questions, which is that it's about, I think, constantly trying to ask yourself this question and keep reinforcing the feel, right? Every game session, I'm asking those kinds of questions, especially the beginning ones, to really get us going on the right foot, or on the right hoof. Get your players to do that too at the very beginning. So, what I would do from the very start is recruit your players to actively have a Western style backstory and lean into that during play, right? The PC who says, I chased down banditos, the ex-marshal who had to make a tough choice and lost their badge, right? You want those kinds of ingrained into Western type stories. The former bank teller who was robbed one too many times and decided to get out of there with a gun in their hand. That really helps you. If they have these kinds of stories, they will want to continue those stories, and it'll make it easier for you. On your end, lean into these tropes, right? Being on horseback and weaving through, dusty canyons or down cactus-laden hilltops. The saloon, the bank robber where the safe is pulled out on ropes, right? Sticks of dynamite on a bridge, gold in them there hills, the Gatling gun, the showdown at noon, the young kid who wants to be a PC's sidekick, right? Chewing on straw, like, you get back to town and someone offers you for a few coin to soak in a tub in a hotel, right? Those kinds of things, just, make a list of that stuff and just keep putting those scenes in that will make it a very different experience than your normal type of setting, right? On the monster side, lean into that, really work with what fits the genre. Reskin monsters as needed to bring in that feel, give them, choose which Western hat that monster's wearing, right? Whether it's an undead or whatever. The 6 guns that they're carrying, all that kind of thing. Just lean into that piece after piece.
Excellent. We'll get to one more question today. Felix Pinteritz via email. I'm having trouble finding the right level of complexity for the plot of my homebrew campaigns. I usually try to add some drama, spice, or a twist to make prep fun for myself, but in play, even the smallest complications leave my players baffled and confused. These things can be as small as 2 NPCs telling the party conflicting information about the same thing, or finding out that the overly friendly recurring NPC was actually a spy. Are TTRPGs not a good medium to convey even slightly complex stories? Are we better off sticking with very simple and understandable plots? If yes, how do we hook the players and create stakes? I know this is hard to answer without having the full context, but I would love to hear your general takes and experiences with this. Felix, amen, and I feel you. This advice is often given for puzzles or riddles, but it's also true for plots, which is you can't make them too simple. You really can't. And of course, it's going to be different from player to player and game to game. But in my experience, if the game master keeps it simple and allows the players to bring their own complexity, you are more likely to get a smooth game and work with the players' complexity, the complexity the players bring, the complexity they bring with their characters. Use that in your plot rather than trying to make the plot complex. Because it is absolutely true that some players, if you give them a bit of information, even if it's from an unreliable source, they will take it as gospel. Or the opposite, right? Every piece of information they get, they treat with complete skepticism because they're always waiting for that twist to the point where you can't just say, this is true because they won't believe it. Mm-hmm. So make the plot simple, ask the players to make complexity in their characters' stories. Then you can bring that complexity through them into the game.
Yeah, there was a neat comment by Robin Laws a while back on his podcast where he talked about you can only have so many red herrings at a time, or even confusing elements at a time. And he recommended for a lot of times he's running a spy type genre. Maybe it was Kenneth Hyde. One of the two of them were talking about this on their podcast. And you can only have it so many. So you want to make a list of them. And if you want to add a new one, you've got to kill another one off. And that's a good advice in general to sort of think about how many confusing bits do I have? Because even more than a couple starts getting into a problem. Now, an individual scene, right? Like if you have these 2 NPCs giving conflicting information, one thing that I think of is, especially with new groups, you might have to be a bit more of a teacher than just the DM representing the world. And that's where, imagine this is like their first game of D&D, and you might say, hey, break out a character and say, so you guys see clearly conflicting information from two of these. You're not sure if one or the other or neither is correct. What do you want to do? Just break it down, right? So that because if they're having trouble with it, just if you tell me how you're going to determine which one's telling the truth, so that it's a clear goal rather than just confusion. And then they might say, well, could I do an insight check? Could I do whatever? Could I say this to them? And that can help get through a scene so that you can have those kinds of scenes if you want to have, because I think it's very reasonable to want to have, as you mentioned in this question, fun scenes where these kinds of things happen. But if you make them longer than just this scene, that's where you need to track it, right? So recently, I revealed in my Deadlands campaign that one of the NPCs they've been talking to is actually quite capable, almost like ninja level capable. I had tried to drop some hints, and I'm pretty sure I never did so properly to where they really picked it up. Hopefully, when it was revealed, they were like, "Oh, maybe this makes sense," but it probably didn't. It was probably just a surprise. But it wasn't critical, so I did not worry about it. It was not on my list. It was just sort of a thing I had in mind. Maybe this will get revealed. If not, it's fine. Or maybe we'll reveal it at the very end, like last session, right? Like it didn't matter, so it was fine. But if it had been critical, that's where I track it. And it's one of the ones that I'm trying to periodically drop hints, monitor, and make sure it's not going to be overwhelming.
Couldn't said it any better. So we will end there and get into our news and commentary section, starting with an interesting article on D&D Beyond called How to Hook Your Friends and Family on D&D in One Night. I saw this because we've been talking a lot about starter sets and about learning to play, right? With the new starter set coming from Wizards, with the Dagger Heart launch, with the Draw Steel launch. And teaching new players is becoming more and more important. So I wanted to see what this article had to say. And it was interesting in its sort of simplicity, where you can say, yeah, I could see this being true most of the time or some of the time, but maybe not all of the time. So Mike Bernier, or I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, Mike, you can correct me if you're listening. Mike writes this article for D&D Beyond. There is no true way to teach this game because you have different kinds of players, different kinds of groups, etc. So this is the 4 categories Mike broke down. 1, finding the right group. 2, starting off on the right foot. 3, providing the right atmosphere. And 4, evaluating how it went and getting feedback. So 1, finding the right group. Mike basically says, talk to your friends, family, coworkers, people who you interact with, and see if they speak the same language as you in terms of the media, the entertainment that they're interested in. Are they fans of Marvel? Do they like fantasy, right? Do they like storytelling? Do they like games? You can generally suss out the people who would at least initially be interested in playing a game of D&D. He says specifically, find them and then find some connection between their fandom and D&D. So he says, if they're fans of Marvel, have them watch Deborah Ann Wall's discussion with I was just watching a show with him in it, who plays the Punisher, Berthnall, where she explains to him what D&D is. John Berthnall. Show him that. So, look, these Marvel actors play D&D or are interested in D&D. And I think I want to talk about each of these individually. I think that's a really, really great point, because so many times we as fans of D&D get so excited that we think, anyone would love this.
Yeah.
Anyone should play this, and it's not the case. Now, people might surprise you, and someone who might not initially look like or talk like or seem like a fan could become a fan. But just because you love something doesn't mean everyone's going to love it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting I thought this whole article was interesting because it's not the typical advice, right? So it doesn't say,
Mhm,
hey, go to Meetup or go to, like
mhm.
in the olden days, right? The Yahoo groups, go to Blue Sky, go to, whatever,
Yeah,
go on to Mastodon. And it's like, find the mundanes that would want to become one of us, which is, I think, yeah, it could work, but it's harder.
right,
It's not, go to a convention in your area and meet the locals who are already
right.
doing it, which I thought was very interesting, different advice.
Mhm. And Mike does say, go to startplaying.com or, go to those
Yeah, the wizards
areas.
locator. Yeah.
Yeah,
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 though I mean, it's sort of like a bullet point thing, but yeah, yeah.
yep. Next is starting off on the right foot. And the two categories there are no character sheets, just vibes, and structured steps. And again, I thought this was a fascinating look at the different ways that you come to D&D or come to understand role-playing games. And as I read the comments afterward, and someone said no character sheets, someone tried that with me 15 years ago, and I thought this was a stupid thing with no rules. And so I didn't even try it again for 15 years. And then once someone taught me the right way, uh, I I loved it and haven't stopped playing since.
Huh.
And and so that person may be an outlier, but outliers are people and outliers are a segment of the population. And I can totally see someone who, if you try to give them a narrative introduction and play this game of pretend, they would be like, not interested. But if you put a piece of paper in front of them with numbers on it, that gains
Yeah.
their attention. Again, maybe, possibly, likely an outlier, but still something as you're finding the right group to keep in mind.
Well, I think this also supposes that you as a DM would be perfectly comfortable improvising a scene and
Mhm.
shepherding a person through this, experience, which is sort of like what Deborah on Wall does, right? She's okay.
Yeah.
You're in the forest, you hear some noise. What do you do? What are the weapons you're holding, right? This is fine when you're a storyteller like she is, and a very
Right.
experienced dungeon master, but you might not be. And this sort of improv, a lot of tried and true DMs don't feel comfortable quite free flying like this, right? And so, again, I thought this was really unusual advice. Also, hey, the game of D&D is made a certain way, and to say like, well, level 1 is complicated, which it is, I agree,
Mhm.
but it's a sort of funny thing to say, like, how about just hit points and armor class and a fixed amount of damage? Well, that's not the game,
Mhm.
you know
Right.
um I have so many
Yeah.
comments on this topic, but it was a very
Right.
interesting idea, this whole just dice and vibes. It's an
Yeah.
approach. I don't think it's for everybody. It could really
Mhm.
work if you're able to deliver on this, but
Mhm.
it also could go sideways, and I'd almost prefer to just say, think through very simple scenes that can give you the flavor
Mhm.
of D&D, low threat, right? Which is something I think Mike
Right.
Shea has talked about. How many adventures that are official adventures start level 1 with really challenging scenes, which might punish the
Mhm.
players, right? So just,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And that was part two of starting on the right foot, which is structured steps,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
Which is have a plan for going from whatever your pitch is to another step that adds maybe a touch complexity, but also possibly a touch more interest, and then continue on those steps. But hopefully, the box set, the starter set, Heroes of the Borderlands, will give you this structured
Mhm.
introduction where you're adding pieces as you go.
Yeah.
Um, so think about that. The
Yeah, and
third
that's
step.
a thing.
Oh,
I'll
go
just
ahead.
say very quickly. That's a thing I've advocated for sure, which is, and I've been doing this in my videos where I talk about the 5 steps to learn a game. Where when you start with just skills in a little bit of a low pressure, it may not give you that strong, exciting start all the time. That you can make it a little bit exciting, but it gives you the freedom to just figure out how in D&D the D20 works, how to look at one zone on your character sheet and use just that zone around skills. And now you know it. Now you're like, anytime the DM from here on asks you for a skill check, I'm going to understand what that means. Then we go to an easy combat. Now I'm using that combat block of the character sheet. And if maybe I remind them of one special thing they can do off the rest of their character sheet, right? That kind of tiered introduction really, really works well.
Mhm. Next, we have provide the right atmosphere. So the 3 steps are keep it casual, use visual elements, and use snacks. And I thought that was hilarious. The use snacks.
Yeah.
But it's not actually that far out there. Right? These social settings, these uh, the senses, the more of the senses that you can stimulate, and taste is one that we often forget. But if you are giving someone a food or drink that they love,
Yeah.
while presenting something to them that you want them to love,
Mm-hmm.
you're more likely to
Yeah.
trigger some sort of positive reaction to it.
I love
Uh,
the quote, a well-fed table is a happy table. And they're not wrong, right? And it gives you something to do with your hands and your mouth, in between. Yeah, there are a lot of reasons to have snacks at the table in some way, hopefully some healthy options.
yep.
This I thought this was all pretty good advice in this section. It's that kind of the snack part ties to me into the idea that we often forget when we're first setting up a game, trying to find players, especially if we're new trying to do this, that this is a social thing we're building.
Mhm, mhm,
These are going to be our friends. And so there is a lot of trepidation and a lot of work that has to go into getting people together and developing friendships with them. And so,
mhm,
you can do a lot here, but you want to be, I think, a little bit aware of that. This is not just people playing a game. We're
mhm.
creating friendships, and that makes it more complicated.
The keep it casual, I like on many levels, but it's a reminder for us as hardcore fans to dial it back maybe a bit and let people come at it at their own pace and don't try to
Mm.
push too far, push too fast, show everything at once.
Yeah.
Let people take it at their own pace and not be too intense about it. Uh, and then, of course, the visual elements are just add one more sense to the thing. While we might just say you're in the forest and you're being attacked by a centaur, what do you do? Right? To have art, to have minis, to have things to manipulate can be just as
Oh,
important as the sounds.
yeah, and I almost would say from the D&D Beyond company perspective, or let's say D&D perspective, it's worth almost rewriting this once the starter set comes out to be
Yep.
focused solely on using that set, because that set
Yep.
has tactile elements. It sometimes has maps, it sometimes doesn't. It has larger area maps and choices, and you could almost write a specific version of this article
Mm.
with that set from what we've seen
Yep.
at Gen Con.
For sure. And all of this is important too, because we're going to talk about in our main segment our draw steel game.
Hmm.
And we played a quote unquote, teaching
Yeah.
adventure. And so it'll be interesting to tie this back to there too. The last thing, evaluate how it went and get player feedback. And again, this is good advice that sometimes we don't remember because we're so excited and we want people to love what we've just shown them. To say, did you have fun? Was there anything that you wanted more of or wanted less of? And would you be interested in playing again? And another piece of advice is it's better to leave them wanting more than making them or forcing them to wish they had less. Uh,
Absolutely.
so stop sooner than you think you should and say, hey, we didn't quite finish. Do you want to play for another hour, next week? And I'll show you the next steps in the process. Um,
Yeah.
so I thought that was a cool article. Speaking of the starter set, the D&D starter set will be delayed in the European Union and in the UK. What's going on with that?
Yeah, we just heard about this as we're recording. So we have new dates: the UK September 30th, the EU October 14th. Um, we did hear a long time ago that box sets come from China, books come from the US, sometimes other areas depending on localization, but the box sets were the big impact for China. So it may be tariff related, it may be related to printing issues. It feels, Shawn, to me like there has been a constant stream of these kinds of delays and
Mhm.
impacts and incorrect printings. Probably it's the fact that D&D just operates at such a huge volume that trying to print everything for a certain date comes with a lot of issues, right? We
Yeah.
saw that with the Eberron delay recently, and we've seen it multiple times in the past. The Post also hedges its bets. It has some nebulous wording about the other books, providing the current dates for upcoming books and sets, and saying these still have expected launch dates, but we will update it closer to those dates. So, if you are in non-US regions or even the US, you may need to pay close attention because maybe those dates will move.
This is true. What's not going to move is the American pastime, baseball. Why am I mentioning baseball? Is it just to make Mike Shea crazy? No. There is news about an RPG themed baseball night. The Kansas City Royals announced a tabletop role playing game night on September 17th as they play the Seattle Mariners, of all places, where Wizards of the Coast is homed. Gather your group and get down to the ballpark on Wednesday, September 17th at 6:40 p.m. for an extra special night filled with dragons, dingers, and dungeons. The special theme night features exciting in-stadium activities, activations, and more. You can get a theme ticket to take home a special Royals dice pack and adventure book. You and your group are encouraged to
Wow.
use the dice and adventure book to play through your own campaign.
Wow.
Are we closer to baloney, Teos?
We are at an entirely different level of, D&D hasn't had any of this business during 3rd edition and 4th edition, right? And
Yeah,
even
yeah,
late 2nd, like, it was only at the peak of the 80s when you had things like, you'd go to any whatever your store chain was of choice, and you'd see things like D&D birthday plates, right? There was that level of just D&D as a known entity thing back then, and then it just kind of took a dip down, and we are
mhm.
clearly on this upswing, right? I still think the high water mark are the postal stamps, but this kind of thing is fantastic. I love it. Love it. Love it.
When I first read this, I thought, oh, it must be like a minor league team that, some sort of special theme to. No, this is the big leagues.
Yeah.
This is the show, Teos. This
This
is
is
the
the show.
show.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And
And the idea that
yeah,
it isn't just like some minor thing, but that you're literally getting a dice pack? Like, what? A special
yeah,
dice pack and adventure book? I mean, this is just incredible. I could see people driving across state lines to grab this, right? Like, just
yeah,
this is amazing. Like, this is so cool.
yep. And we go from Kansas City to London, where there's now D&D in the heart of London, because on August 6th,
'16th.
August 16th, thank you. Uh, Hasbro opened a Hasbro hub in downtown London. It provides Hasbro's various brands, including Dungeons and Dragons, meant to communicate the brands to tourists visiting this busy city during the peak summer tourism and school holiday times. This pop-up shop promises exclusive merchandise, though it's unclear if anything provided will be completely D&D related. The store is a two-floor space with more than 3,000 square feet, located at Below the Lights in Piccadilly Circus.
That's awesome. I mean, yeah, it's obviously a larger Hasbro thing, but boy, I am very curious whether any Londoners have gone in there. If you live in London and have checked this out, let us know whether any of that exclusive merchandise was D&D related. I'd be very, very curious to hear
Yep.
about that.
I'm looking at you, Martin Hughes. Tell me you've been there. Tell me you're going. All right. Legends of Greyhawk videos have been released from Gen Con. These two videos were recorded by Crit Hit the Giant at Gen Con, featuring Legends of Greyhawk administrators and authors, including some little dork named Shawn.
He's our favorite little dork, Sean Merwin.
That's right.
Yeah, they were.
So, yeah.
I watched both of these. I had a blast hearing you, Eric Mengi, and Greg Marks, three wonderful, beautiful people, talking about what Legends of Greyhawk is and the three first adventures that you all wrote. It's awesome video, super useful to learn about Legends of Greyhawk and the care that you all took in creating these experiences. Then there is a second video, What is the Domain of Greyhawk, with Tony Winslow Brill, Savannah Houston McIntyre, and Andy Demps. And that is great to see as well. Andy talks about his adventure. Savannah and Tony talk about the building of the campaign itself and some of the guiding principles of it. It's really, really fantastic. I loved watching both of these, and very helpful if you've had questions about the program.
You can catch those on YouTube, and you can catch the Cosmere role-playing game release date on October 29th. This is for the physical version of the Cosmere. You can go to EN World and you can see that article. But if you've been waiting patiently for your physical copy, you now have a date to circle on your calendar. And on our creator corner, we have a few things today. We have Battlezoo Secret Tomes for Shadow Dark. What's this all about, Teos?
Yeah, so this is the Roll for Combat group. So it's been wildly successful. When I looked at it a week ago or something, it had like 247,000 raised, 1,600 backers. It's 3 different tomes for Shadow Dark. Monster Hunt drags you into worlds stalked by nightmare beasts. Strange and Unusual peels back the veil of reality, revealing creatures warped by the unknown and classes that twist the rules of magic, flesh, and reason itself. And Elemental Storm shatters the world, unleashing terrors spawned by volcanoes, storms, and the grinding, shuddering bones of the earth. Pretty cool. So if it's all as evocative as those descriptions that they wrote, it's got to be really good. So these 3 books have done really well so far.
Excellent. 2 things I've worked on that I wanted to call out. First is Surviving Strangehollow being up on Gamefound. So this is, if you've watched the show for a while, you know all about this. It is for 5e players and dungeon masters with close to 1,000. No, slow down, Shawn. 100 new creatures, 14 plus new subclasses, new backgrounds, feats, spells, and magic items, including minis and all of the beautiful hand-painted art. Lots of it coming from British artist Emily Hare.
Love the art.
And the art is the basis of this whole campaign. We kickstarted it before, and now we're trying to get it across the finish line, and it's up on Gamefound if you want to. If you missed the Kickstarter and want to back it, you can do so on Gamefound. Right now, it is in just pre-release, so you can click to be reminded when it actually goes live, but it should be going live pretty soon. And speaking of going live, as of this recording, we are 1 day away from the Aetherial Expanse Dreams of the Drowned God Kickstarter, which means by the time you're hearing this, it will already have been out for at least 24 hours. Mm-hmm. So you can go to the Kickstarter, link in our show notes. This is an adventure for levels 1 through 13, I believe is the number that we've settled on, where you can embark on a plane-spanning 5e 2024 adventure full of mystery, war, and cosmic catastrophe. The lead designer is the brilliant Will Doyle. We have Aaron Roberts and James Hake and Andy Collins and so many others also working on it. And it'll have everything that you need to run this ethereal, astral, piratey ships intrigue. I cannot wait to talk about it some more.
Yeah, the trailers look awesome.
Yeah, the trailer's out as well, and you can check all that out right now on Kickstarter. That was our news and commentary section.